On this day in history, February 20th, 1472, Orkney and Shetland are pawned by Norway to Scotland in lieu of a dowry for Margaret of Denmark. Included in the following is an excerpt from the 1944 edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica going over the history of the Orkney Islands. The Orkneys were the Orcades of classical writers, and the word is probably derived from the Norse Orken, seal, and island. Evidences of prehistoric occupation include numerous weems, or underground houses, chambered mounds, barrows, or burial mounds, brocks, or round towers, and stone circles and standing stones. Three of the most famous are the Carbell tomb at Mayshau, and the circles of standing stones at Brogar and Stennis, with an early village discovered in 1928. If, as seems likely, the Dalradic Scots towards the beginning of the 6th century established a footing in the islands, their success was short-lived, and the native inhabitants regained power and kept it until dispossessed by the Norsemen in the 9th century. The Celtic missionaries, companions of St. Columba, followed about 565. As the Norse pirates made raids on Norway from the islands, as well as on Scotland, Harold Hairfager, Fairhair, subdued the rovers in 875 and added the Orkneys and Shetlands to Norway. They remained under the rule of Norse earls until 1231, when the line of the earls became extinct. In that year, the earldom of Caithness was granted to Magnus, second son of the Earl of Angus, whom the King of Norway apparently confirmed in the title. In 1468, the Orkneys and Shetlands were pledged to Christian I of Denmark for the payment of the dowry of his daughter Margaret, betrothed to James III of Scotland, and as money was never paid, their connection with the Crown of Scotland has been perpetual. In 1471, William, Earl of Orkney, exchanged his earldom for lands in Fife, and the islands were annexed to the Scottish Crown. In 1581, Lord Robert Stewart, natural son of James V, was created Earl of Orkney, but in 1615 the earldom was again annexed to the crown. The islands were the rendezvous of Montrose's expedition in 1650, which culminated in his imprisonment and death. In 1707, the islands were granted to the Earl of Morton in mortgage, but in 1766 his estates were sold to Sir Lawrence Dundas, ancestor of the Marquesses of Zetland. In the early times, both the Archbishop of Hamburg and the Archbishop of York disputed with the Norwegians ecclesiastical jurisdiction over the Orkneys, but ultimately the Norwegian bishops, the first of whom was William the Old, consecrated in 1102, continued the canonical succession. The see, left vacant on several occasions, was finally abolished in 1697, although many of the clergy refused to conform. The Norse tongue, at last extinguished by the constant influx of settlers from Scotland, lingered until the end of the 18th century. When the islands were given as security for the princess's dowry, there seemed reason to believe that it was intended to redeem the pledge, because it was then stipulated that the Norse system of government and the law of St. Olaf should continue to be observed in Orkney and Shetland. Thus, the Udal succession and mode of land tenure, or that is, absolute freehold as distinguished from feudal tenure, still obtained to some extent, and the remaining Udalers hold their lands and pass them on without written title.